Hey everyone. So, I hope everybody had an amazing Christmas and is ready for the new year. This year has been crazy in just so many different ways. But what I wanted to do is just kind of take a second to talk about uh, the vulnerability, if you will, of our personal lives. So, what I mean by that is, I was doing some research and talking to a lot of industry experts. And what I found out in 2021, there have been over 1,290 data breaches. Over 1,200 data breaches of companies that we deal with on a day in and day out surface. So, what does that mean for you? And what does that mean for your clients and anybody that's really affected by, our personal and professional lives? And so when you look at, diving down into a data breach, it could be as simple as, they pulled your address. It doesn't give that person any information about you. But what about a data breach that could be, so in depth that it pulled your name, your social, your bank account numbers, everything about you that would allow somebody to create a false you. And that's scary. Personally, myself, what was it, 10 plus years ago, I found on my credit report a quite a few collections out of Los Angeles, California, for somebody that had opened up a utility bills, cable, gas, electric, all the above to get a new home started. And it was all in my name. And that's scary because, it's a simple phone call. Hey, we just moved into this new spot. We want to set up, gas, electric, lights, whatever it may be. And those companies take your word for it. There's no send me your ID, there's no send me proof of who you are. It's just as simple as, they verified the address, and then they're going to set up that service. So if they have the name, address, social, date of birth, they can set up a service in your name. And, coming across this year as I reflect on it is I've seen so many people who have been victim to identity theft, who have been victim to, something as simple as their name matches somebody else. And so that's why I want to become, more vigilant this year in 2022 of making sure that everybody's personal file, their personal record with the major bureaus. So that's going to be your Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, but not just stopping there. You want to make sure that your LexisNexis is correct, and there's many more. But not having any disparities of your name. So if it's, John C. Smith, and that's your legal name, then that's what needs to be reported to all three bureaus. Personally, I think it should be even more granular than that. It needs to be John Charles Smith on every single bureau, along with your actual date of birth. So that means your date, the month, the year across all three. And then when we get into personal information, that it also goes into your address. Only having the actual address on file that you actually live at, nothing older. You want to get rid of all those old addresses. And then that even falls down into your career. So all the bureaus will post who you've worked for, current employer, ex-employers, and whatever it may be. And of course, we've all seen it. It's all over the board. So you only want to have the data that is true and accurate to you legally. And that's a real important part of your credit file, is having that as an actual fact of who you are. Because a lot of the people that we come across with, and really in just life in general, they have common names. It wasn't until a few years ago with, pop stars started calling their kids Rain and, North. I get it, I love it, but, there was the John, the Philip, the, Tom, whatever it may be. Pick a name, and it's across the board for millions of people across the world. So imagine a credit bureau that is getting all this information that's collectively coming in at, a million miles an hour. And of that data that comes across, there are mistakes that are made. It's no different than when you pick up your cell phone and it's not working and you have to do a reset on it. It's no different when you get a blue screen error on your computer or laptop and you've got to do a reset on it. That data, it's all, zeros and ones, all flowing across everything that we do and what we experience. But it's not uncommon for those data streams to become intertwined and create inaccuracies. So, repairing credit is great, but it's all about that personal experience and making sure that the personal information is so accurate that your client or you, especially, are protected. So, I wanted to come on and just say, this is a big deal. This isn't going away. The reason why there are so many data breaches is because, there's hackers of all different levels of experience. There's also hackers of all different levels of what they're trying to do, whether it be nefarious, whether it be just to see how far they can get into a company. Hey, Nicole. Whether it, to destroy somebody. And, the reality is the technology and the kids that are coming up today are so talented that they can go in and find your information and change it. They can erase you. And that's scary. So if somebody can go in with a simple laptop, no matter where they are in the world, and change your name, give you a criminal record, give you a bad credit report, whatever it may be, that should be frightening enough. I know when all of you log into your computers every day and you go in and type in your password for whatever it may be, that a pop-up comes up and says that your data may be, compromised. You should think about changing that password. And that's not just a bullshit, pop-up. That's the reality. They're trying to protect you. The majority of the people just say, yeah, I've used that password. I have 9 different other passwords by work and 5 different ones here in my bank and all that. It's too much. But you have to take it seriously. Because the second that you stop taking it seriously is when you get taken. So imagine this, that, you've ignored those warnings. You've, whatever. It's just stupid. But, tomorrow a data breach happens with Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, YouTube, PayPal, whatever it may be. Your own bank. Imagine that somebody got your data and they started creating a new you. How do you think you're going to be able to react to that? How quick do you even think that you're even going to know about it? So what I implore you to do is really, we have insurance for car accidents. We pay this bill every month, no matter if we get in an accident or not. Medical insurance. We all hate it. You gotta have it. If you get sick, you get covered. They, pay your deductible, whatever it may be. But the same goes for your credit. Having that monitoring everything that's happening in your credit file in your personal life, down to those ones and zeros. And if you don't have that and you don't take that seriously, let me tell you what the reality is you're not going to know that somebody has taken your information for months. Because the average company is going to set up a new account. They're going to get that service. They're going to run it for a few months, and then hey, all of a sudden you're not paying the bill. So they're going to send you notices. They're going to send you late payments. They're going to send you shut-off notices, and then by month 8 to 12, they're eventually going to shut you off. They're going to file liens against that property that you don't even own. They're going to start sending things to collections that then you might get notice of, because then that company's going to employ skip tracers, just like a repo company, that is going to find everything about you and where you've lived and send information about it and start calling you, your friends, your family, anything against your credit report. So without having that monitoring into your actual life credit file, you're not going to know for sometimes up to a year. And then what? Then you're behind the 8 ball. Then you are guilty before proven innocent, and you have to prove that it wasn't you. How much is your time worth? How much time are you going to put into the phone calls and sending, pictures of Your driver's license, your utility bills, your mortgage statements, proving that you don't live there. You didn't set that up. What if you have to hire a lawyer? How much does that cost? You know, I understand there's things like Legal Shield and all that can help you, but at the end of the day, is you're going to have a hard cost to now bring your life back, and that's scary. So as I reflect on 2021 and where we're going, and really the technology world of our life, is be protected. Make sure that you have that insurance. Credit Karma is bullshit. All that Credit Karma is there for is for two bureaus, and one, which is Equifax, which is going away. So what's it going to be worth after that happens? Equifax has already created their own company, their own quick check as of Credit Karma. And really, Credit Karma is just an outlet that gives you a just quick little, here's your score, update your score now. But when you actually log into it, it's like you applied for this, or you got approved for this card, or this loan, or whatever it may be. All it is an outlet of third-party things that will make them money. But the reality is, everything they offer you is going to be a rip-off to you. It's high interest rates, it's garbage cards, it's garbage companies, it's fraudulent. That's what I call it, it's fraudulent. They are taking advantage of the weak. And the people that say, oh, my Credit Karma is it, you're the weak. You have succumbed to the weakness. So we as professionals have to be able to expand that to our clients and our friends and family. Is don't look at Credit Karma. That's garbage. Don't look at all these little third-party pop-up companies that tell you what your credit score is or might be. Because the reality is, when you go try to buy a car or buy some jewelry and whatever it may be, buy a house, those scores are bullshit. And people don't understand, not being in this industry, what Vantage versus FICO is. They don't understand that there might be over 100 different scoring methods that actually make up a score. Yet they latch on to Credit Karma. Well, my score's 650. But then I go buy a car and my score's 580. Well, yeah, weird. Because it's not accurate. 99% of car dealers today use FICO scores for pulling car credit. Of course, then you've got your mortgage companies. Every single mortgage company that you use, there's over 10 different FICO companies and FICO scoring methods that they use. You could be a 700 at this spot and be a 620 at this spot. It's the method and the version that they use, and that's what our peoples don't know. And that's what you should be doing to give that education. You have to take it one step further because you are the expert. And you have to be able to dumb this down to somebody that doesn't know and give that education, because that education was never given to anyone. So what I implore you to do in this little quick live, it was all about being protected and making sure that your network of people knows how scary this really is. How would you like it if your mother, your father, had their identity taken? That they became so immersed in so many collections for something they never did, that caused phone calls to their job, which cost them their job. And we all know that we're a couple paychecks away from losing our life. So what if your mother, your grandmother, your father, your grandfather, whatever it may be, is, gets their identity taken, and all these bills come in, these collections, and they start harassing their job, and they lose their job. And then what happens then? They can't pay their mortgage. Their bills go behind. They lose everything. They're homeless. I mean, that's taking it to the extreme. But that's the reality of where we're going in life. So our job is to make sure that everyone we talk to is protected. You can only do so much. You can only say so much, and people are only going to accept so much. But the reality is, people are skeptics. And, all you can do is prove it to them. So it's a simple web search. So London, I'm seeing your questions. There's some things that I'll post about differences in FICO scores and Vantage and all the different, methods of it, that you guys can use for, helping your friends, your family, your network. But just make sure that your network knows to be protected. You know, I don't endorse Identity IQ or Smart Credit or, Free Score Now. It doesn't matter. I like Identity IQ. That's who I use. I stick with somebody that works, and that's me. But the reality is, if you're not subscribed to a real network that gives you real monitoring, which even pairs it with, identity fraud protection. I mean, IDIQ does $1 million. That's huge money. And imagine how much it would cost you to stop work. Maybe you got fired because of it. Maybe you were in a position that required you to have, bank level securities. Somebody as simple as a bank teller cannot have collections and charge offs. That'll ruin your career. So now you lost your job and all this because of somebody stole your identity. And then you've been, shot down as guilty. And you have to prove your innocence. And how many months, how many hours, how many dollars? So it's a serious topic. And that's something as a professional, talking about credit, you have to get out to your people. And, it's intimidating. I get it. But this isn't something we learned in school. So this is something that we are now learning about in our careers, in our professions, that you have to tell your people. So if anybody has any questions, obviously reach out. I'd love to answer them. I've dove into this pretty deep, so I'm pretty immersed in it. I'll put some stuff out in our group, on my YouTube page, and all the above. But number one, I love you. Happy holidays. I hope you all had a great Christmas, and keep winning. We'll talk to y'all later.